Welcome to the Squad Show. I'm Sam Ekstrom, and I'm rooting for Marcus Mariota to play on Sunday so he can audition for the Vikings 2026 QB job.
Hey, this is Arif Hasan with Wide Left Football. I have continued to harass and exploit Luke Braun for content.
And I'm Luke Braun, the guy Arif is harassing. And I wrote about Bryce Young this week. That's how this season's going.
Skol! It's the Vikings Squad. Everything Minnesota Vikings, every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the land of 10,000 lakes. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. It's time to gear up. The Vikings Squad Show starts now.
What's up, and welcome into our Thursday Vikings Squad Show, streaming on Locked On Vikings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network. We're glad you're with us for the next hour for the best Vikings talk around. Also, check out Luke Braun on Locked On Vikings daily 30-minute dose of Minnesota Vikings football. Today's show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Before the show is over, we will give you Commander storylines. There is actually a game on Sunday, even though the playoffs seem to be fading away.
Strange.
We will have creative fixes for 2026, how this roster gets better, and can JJ take a step next year, sort of like Caleb Williams, sort of like Drake May in their second years, even though JJ's in his second year, but he's kind of a rookie, and I don't need to explain it all. All of it's coming up on the Vikings Squad Show. We addressed it a little bit yesterday, and that's why I want to continue the conversation today, because I think you point to Caleb switching coaches from Eberflus to Ben Johnson. You look at May going from the tire fire last year and Gerard Mayo, one and done, and they go to Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels, and he looks like a totally different guy as well. Can JJ take a step like that without the magic pill of a coaching change, right? Like the Jared Goff going from Jeff Fisher to Sean McVay type of pill that seems to bring about the best in young quarterbacks. Is it realistic to think that we just need another offseason and to get into next year for JJ to turn that corner?
What kind of step are you looking for? I'm doing a series at Wide Left about exactly this with a bunch of quarterbacks, and I did the first one. That's the Bryce Young article I talked about in the cold open, was about Bryce Young taking a step forward after, his disastrous rookie year. And what he's doing now, he's just coming off of a game where he was the most productive quarterback in the NFL in week 13. And he's been closer to, there's been ups and downs for Bryce Young still. He's been closer to an average quarterback, and that took him 2 years to sort of mitigate, but not all the way solve some of the mechanical issues that have been plaguing him. I think some of that is stuck to the type of body that he has, both his height, which, yeah, it's a thing, and it does affect how he has to throw the ball, but also just the flexibility that his body, like, there is an athletic limitation that he's been working around his whole career. And yeah, that does cause things to still kind of get caught up, but I would say he's like gotten about halfway to fixing the problem, and it took 2 years. So if we're going to apply that same thing to JJ McCarthy, yeah, we got a long road ahead of us. And the baseline of JJ McCarthy is a lot worse. And therefore you would anticipate that it takes longer to figure it out. What you need to believe that, JJ is going to take that year 2 leap, is that whatever happened this year was not about McCarthy just not being good. You have to find some kind of excuse that's easy to solve, such as, and I think there are a couple you could find that maybe give you hope, such as McCarthy hasn't had a real offseason yet at all. He had his first offseason in the NFL was the draft. You're not really doing a lot of, work on your mechanics in the draft. You're doing combine, you're doing interviews, your time is occupied elsewhere. And then last year, of course, he didn't have much work done in the offseason at all because he was rehabbing for an injury. So if we want to kind of apply that to Bryce, that like what we have seen with at least Bryce Young, we probably want a faster timeline, and we need to look for a reason to expect that timeline to be faster. The offseason thing is one of them, but I don't really find that all the way persuasive. But if you're looking for something to hang on to, there you go.
And I feel like I don't even fully buy the offseason thing, because he did have 2 full spring programs where he was doing the OTA thing. He was doing the mandatory minicamp thing. He had training camp for 2 years. Like he did some stuff those years. But Arif, you tweeted yesterday some of the irony of the quotes from O'Connell demanding that the technique be fixed 2 weeks ago, and now saying he can throw with his left hand. We don't care. He can throw backwards. He can heave it behind his head. We just want him to make the right decisions. So a total expectation shift, total philosophy.
Fast pitch softball throws. Don't worry about it.
Yep. Translation: I might have cooked this kid.
Yeah, so,
throwing out the details.
So for people who are unaware of the context, 16 days ago now, so 2 weeks ago, Kevin O'Connell did his weekly appearance with Paul Allen on KFan, and they asked a couple of questions, some from listeners and stuff like that. But ultimately, in 2 separate segments on that radio appearance, Kevin O'Connell talked about the importance of making sure they prioritize JJ McCarthy's mechanics. And quote unquote fundamentals. It's always difficult to kind of parse a Kevin O'Connell quote, because he says a lot of words without saying a lot of meaning, and also will, like all coaches, kind of use different words to mean the same thing. So fundamentals and technique, right, are sometimes the stand-ins we have to use for mechanics, and that's not necessarily what that means all the time. But when you parse those quotes, what's very clear here is that he is talking about the mechanics of throwing motion, in particular the footwork. And he called working on the footwork, he called making sure that is aligned non-negotiable. And he also said that this is a priority because it's not something the defense can affect. And obviously, the defense can impact the pocket and change what you do when you're throwing off platform. But ultimately, your ability to play relatively mechanically sound is something you have control over, and not something that relies on stuff like post-snap diagnosis. And so he said, from that perspective, it's simple. Not easy, but simple. It doesn't change from game to game. It's not something that you're game planning for week to week. And so he talked about this as kind of a base building block to work off of from week to week. And the idea now, right? There's Kevin Seifert wrote about this, Star Tribune wrote about this, but the idea now seems to be that actually working on his footwork is screwing things up too much, and he's overthinking, because he is both thinking about the way that his body is moving and also attempting to parse what's happening defensively. And ultimately, we just want to make sure that he's making the right decisions, which tells me a couple of things. One, the season's cooked, right? We're no longer concerned about the ball getting to the receivers accurately. We're just hoping it goes kind of to the right receiver generally. And that's that's high school stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's rough.
Vikings eliminated this week if they lose, by the way.
Yeah, great. The second thing it tells me is that there is no clarity of vision for what the Vikings are doing this year. We already kind of knew this. We've spoken about this on the podcast before. One of Luke's takes, of course, is the Vikings don't even know who on their roster is good, right? And this, I think, speaks to the larger element of not having a clear vision for how they're going to handle the season, and not having really a lot of contingencies for what happens if X, Y, or Z thing goes wrong. And McCarthy not having particularly good mechanics or accuracy is probably one of the things they should have understood was a contingency that they needed to plan for this season, because it was not entirely unpredictable that this would be a problem. Maybe to the extent that it's a problem is a surprise, but it really shouldn't be unpredictable that he would have accuracy problems. And so the idea that they're changing their mind on how they're handling the quarterback situation isn't great. And then I guess the third thing is, when I tweeted out, right, that hey, this is a complete 180 on what you've been talking about in terms of the way that you need to approach the quarterback position this season. Some of the pushback I got was, well, this is a good thing, right? Because it was fool's gold to try and fix mechanics mid-season, which fair enough, right? But my concern here is, okay, let's assume that that's true. Why didn't you know that 2 weeks ago? You're an NFL coach. Your thing is quarterbacks, right?
How about 2 months ago? Like, this is an insane thing to talk about during Toyotathon.
Right. Like we're in Toyota. We're in the midst of Toyotathon. We're done, dude. We can't. So I think
this is like a preseason week 2 talking. Oh wow, mechanics aren't going to get fixed. All right.
I'm still befuddled. Like what did they do? What did they work on all last summer? Like, wasn't like, okay, you come out of the draft of evals, you know this guy might have some mechanic issues. You had him in the building from April until his injury in August. You had then, and then you had the spring and the summer again this year as well. Like and now moving the goalposts, like Arif said, some people think it's good, but it is changing your plan of action. It is looking for a Band-Aid, right? Kind of a quick fix. It's changing your plan. We thought the plan was airtight. We thought that the organizations fail quarterbacks. There should have been a great plan, right? And it seems like he's already changing how he believes he has to coach this young quarterback, which speaks to Braun's frustration that there's just not a cohesive vision for how to handle this situation.
Yeah,
the
indecision
has already growing thin.
Indecision has marred this season in so many ways, where they decide one thing and then it seems like somebody else, maybe somebody higher up, comes in and says, no, that was the wrong decision. We've got to go back on it. Or maybe it's the same person making the same decision and they just can't make up their minds. Either way, it's a disorganized approach. So throw this on the list. I think for McCarthy moving forward, like, look, yeah, this season's cooked. Okay. It's spilt milk. Goodbye. So looking to next year, what needs to happen with McCarthy probably comes down to stuff that happens outside the building with him. Stuff that he does during the months that the team isn't allowed to contact him, that he goes with his trainer, when he works out with whatever receiver. That's the stuff that probably is going to determine his mechanics more than the 10 days of the spring. And, the Vikings
can still... idea that he's going to work with his trainer in the offseason. That spooks me a little bit.
Well, I mean, he is. And it's probably, I know.
I didn't want to think about it.
Yeah, that's the reality is, a lot of what happens with NFL players happens, in a high school field in March where their team is thinking about free agency. That's maybe where that work needs to happen, because that's where you can work every day for weeks and weeks and weeks on end. And the Vikings can give him a directive and say, hey, work on this, work on that. But that actual work is going to come down to McCarthy himself, maybe more than the coaches when it comes to the offseason. And all the Vikings and Kevin O'Connell can do for that is tell him, hey, here's, the direction we want you to take this, and then get like 10 days in the spring where they can check up on things. But it's going to pale in comparison to the many, many, many weeks that McCarthy is going to hopefully spend working on the correct things. And hopefully that's where we get some progress. But I think, part of the reason that coaching change thing is the story so often is because of problems like this, because the staff doesn't know what they want to do with you. They yank you in a million directions. They tell you a million things to remember. Your brain gets overwhelmed. You totally lose your mind. And a great way to reset all of that is to talk to a new person and have a new person be like, I don't know what that last guy told you. Forget all of it. We're going to do this. And maybe a more focused approach can come in. And that doesn't have to be a whole staff clear out. That can be a new QB coach. It can be a new assistant QB coach. It can be a fresh perspective that can say, hey, all of that was a disaster. Forget it. Move it out of your mind. And let's just call this a dead year and start over. And that might be the best option.
Yeah. The Phillips and McCown firing parlay seems likely to get new voices in the room. You look at, to go back to my Williams and May comparison, those guys showed enough as rookies to where you had belief that year two was going to be better. And like Williams even took a lot of sacks, inaccurate and is still inaccurate, but he wasn't turnover prone. I mean, he only threw like 5 or 6 picks last year, and they were close in a lot of games. If anything, like the coaching has gotten the Bears to win more this year. I don't know if Williams is dramatically better other than he doesn't take sacks.
I think he's taking a pretty noticeable step in terms of
decision making.
Yeah, in terms of like kind of staying calm and collected.
Yeah,
he does the weird scramble ramble thing a lot less. And
the last 6 weeks have been significant. They've been huge. I'll say this, Sam. I think that, well, first of all, I don't ever love the idea of giving up after a player after 1 year, right? I never loved the idea. And so the question is like, how close are you to like Josh Rosen territory? And I think the reason that the Cardinals were willing to dump Rosen right away is, one, they had the number 1 overall pick. It was a little bit easier for them to do that. I don't think the Vikings will be there. But 2, Rosen rubbed a lot of people the wrong way from a locker room perspective. And I think, there were significant questions heading into, the draft when he was getting drafted about stuff like his work ethic, right? And I think the combination of outstandingly poor on-field play and a less than appealing kind of off-field situation regarding Rosen made that, possible. But we've seen a bunch of very, very bad rookies kind of be part of a stay the course type, approach. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Obviously, we talk a lot about the successes like Jared Goff, which required kind of a reset and a new coaching staff, like Alex Smith, which required him to have the same offensive coordinator 2 years in a row for once in his life. Like Donovan McNabb, there's like a lot, right? But there's also like your Zach Wilsons, right? Where it's not happening. Sam Darnold, actually a good example. It's not happening. Geno Smith, not happening, right? A lot of like first year to second year to third year quarterbacks haven't improved meaningfully enough, but like teams will stick with them for a variety of reasons. And I think the Vikings are in a spot where I don't think you're contemplating kind of a Rosen scenario, but I think a lot of Vikings fans are probably correct when their demand is not right to jettison JJ McCarthy, but rather to make sure that there's a reasonable and viable competition in camp. I understand that. One complication with that, and I'm not saying it's a bad idea, it's probably a good idea, but one complication with that is that a competition takes reps, right? It takes reps away from whoever your starter is going to be. And so the faster your competition concludes, the better it is for whoever wins the competition in order to kind of get experience with the offense that you're running, the players that you're running that offense with, and so on. So that's something to kind of keep in mind. That said, the Daniel Jones, Anthony Richardson competition went pretty late into camp, if I remember correctly, before they picked a guy that is in the running for the MVP last 3 weeks, notwithstanding. So yeah, I think a competition is a good idea. Just like keep in mind, a competition will, to whatever degree, undercut a little bit the development that you're looking for from the rookie.
Yeah, no question. And it felt like this year they didn't want competition in camp. Once they,
that reason,
I take that back.
Exactly that.
They were open to it. They were open to it until they weren't. Until it would have been the wrong guy. They didn't want a competition for the sake of competition. They wanted a competition with their choice, which would have been Daniel Jones. When we come back, some creative ways to improve the roster next year. Step 1, easy step. Just got to find $50 million to save somewhere. That's
nice.
We're brought to you today by PrizePicks. We make decisions every day, big decisions, little decisions, medium decisions. But when you make the right decision on PrizePicks, you can get paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this busy sports season. NFL, NBA, both in full swing. No better time to jump in on the action. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, put together your entry, and if you get it right, it can pay out fast. You can put your entry together in less than 60 seconds. You can play in most states. And honestly, it's super fun with the new features. With the stacks feature, you can do more, for instance, on like a really good NBA player like Anthony Edwards, points, rebounds, and assists, or Jade McDaniels, right? You can stack it with the new stacks feature. There's also the injury reboot when your player in the entry gets hurt early in the game. So you get refunded for that entry. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL. Get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Also got Ron Johnson coming up here shortly on the Squad Show. Check out Luke Braun on Locked On Vikings. It's streaming like we are now on Locked On Vikings on YouTube. Find the audio wherever you get your podcasts and the Locked On Vikings podcast feed. All right, so 2026, we're already looking ahead. We're already there. I spent a good amount of time this morning just figuring out how to get cap compliant. Would you agree effective cap space is the more accurate depiction of the picture? Because
effective cap space or cap flexibility. Yeah.
They're 51 million in the red for effective cap space per over the cap. I mean, you can carve it. You can definitely carve out 20, 30 million of positive cap space, but you're also going to have to cut bait with some dudes. Or you're going to have some tough restructure conversations. So tell me if you're down with this scenario, just to clear space. I'm cutting Hargrave outright. I'm saving $11 million.
No brainer.
Easy. I think I'm cutting Kelly for $9 million. And you just can't have a center, someone that important who is as injury prone as he is. I think you need someone that can be in there for 17 games reliably. I am adding voids to save significant space on Hawkinson and Jefferson. Probably in the $10 to $15 million range for each. I would restructure O'Neal if he would accept it. I don't think you can afford to cut him. You don't have anyone in the pipeline. You could save $20 million if you did. I don't think you can afford to, because then you're trying to find a center and a right tackle. I'm restructuring O'Neal or adding voids. I'm trying to save about $10 million there. I'm tempted to cut Aaron Jones as well. Are you guys down with that?
Oh man.
Save $8 million.
I suppose, we're in dire straits. I think if you give me a list of a bunch of cut candidates, I think Aaron Jones is probably, that's tough. But
I think the age cliff has started to hit, and I think it only gets worse next year. I'm super fine with this.
Yeah. And then I'm extending Blake Cashman to save another $5 million or so. In all told, cleared up about $60 to $70 million there. Gives you some positive cap space. Now, how do you spend it? Let's bring in Ron Johnson for some opining on the future, the Minnesota Vikings. What's up, Ron? He's at 3 Ron Johnson, host of the Ron Johnson Show. We're talking about future improvement beyond quarterback, Ron. This was a topic of conversation on yesterday's show. Like, we talked about whether this roster is enough, whether you can win with this roster if you just figure out quarterback. But obviously, they're going to have to invest where they can to make improvements. Where are you going to try to improve in free agency? Where do you want to invest the money that you do have?
I'm first going to get some new black uniforms. I think it's time to go black uniforms. The whiteouts are just
rivalry series coming up.
They scream
next year,
soft.
We are going to get a Rivals jersey. You might get your wish.
So I think it's time for black uniforms. I think the Ravens black and purple look awesome. I know for years the Ravens fought for black, and they finally got all black. It's time for the Vikings to really dive into being a true Viking, putting on the black mask and just killing people. So black uniforms. But no, if I'm looking at free agency, I mean, honestly, like Darius Slay, again, he's older. So the problem is there's so many old people out there that everybody keeps trying to recycle them and hoping to get something good out of it. I don't really have a true answer with where to go or who to go to. But I'd say where to go is offensive line. Yeah, offensive line for me. Like, I just think they have to get younger. We know center is probably the most needed. I still don't understand, like, you had an opportunity to draft like John Michael Schmidt. You didn't do it. He's starting for the Giants. Garrett Bradbury, again, we didn't like him here, or at least people did, and he's doing well. So I always wonder about scheme of blocking versus player. You know, what's his name? Ed Ingram. doing well with the Texans. What is D'Amico Ryans and his offensive line coach doing there that the Minnesota Vikings could not do? Randall McDaniel said it on our show, Sam, a while back when we first asked about guard. He's like, guard's hard. He's like, it takes a couple years before you figure out the speed of the game. And then once you figure it out, it kind of slows down and you can really play it. Everybody's not in Quentin Nelson, in his words. And when you think about that too, is like, if you think about offensive line, is it time for a new offensive line coach? Like, I mean, again, I'm not ever in the elk of like trying to get people fired, but I do feel like there needs to be either a scheme change with how the offensive line is blocking or what they're doing. So maybe Kevin O'Connell needs to change his play calling, or you got to figure out how to coach these guys up, because guys are leaving and they're doing well other places.
Arif.
Yeah, I kind of want some more perspective on quarterback development, right? We've been looking at all of these other questions about like, hey, this quarterback eventually turned good, this quarterback eventually turned good. And every quarterback has a different answer, right, as to how long and how well they were able to improve and how quickly they were able to improve. How do you evaluate, the Vikings' capacity for patience with J.J. McCarthy and what they need to do next year, which is a really short timeline, to see better quarterback play?
So I use the movie Toy Story, right? Andy was the favorite toy. And I'd say that's Justin Jefferson. And every once in a while, the older people appreciate. So the older quarterbacks come in, they appreciate a good old toy that everlasted. Andy, you're coming with me when I get married. The new kids come in and they're like, oh, wait, there's a Jordan Addison. Oh, wait, is that a Jalen Naylor over there? Like, they forget about the old toy, which is Justin Jefferson, that is very dependable and is the best toy you have in your room. It's the toy that controls all the other toys. It's the toy that tells all the toys to play dead when Coach Kevin O'Connell comes through. Like, I'm going to that interception up the seam, right? Against the whoever they just played. I don't even want to talk about that game. But up the seam, though, game didn't happen. Flashy thing me. But yeah, they have four verticals going, right? And so how I've always been taught when I play receiver, I play the slot and I play tight end. If you got double high, opens, middle of the field's open. So one guy is the bender. If middle of the field is closed, meaning single high, stay up the seams. If they are in cover 3, you take one of the seams going away from where you're looking. So meaning if you look left, you automatically just know I got to come back right because I'm taking the single high safety to the left with my eyes. I don't know if they're being taught that. I don't know if the game's going too fast. I'm pretty sure they're being taught that. Like, that's football 1-on-1 with 4 verticals. The interception happened because they went split coverage. They went man to the field. They went quarters to the boundary, which allows the outside corner to cover 1 with eyes on 2. That's all he did. It's a simple coverage. If he just went back, so he stared left, he's taking the safety left. If he goes back right, Justin Jefferson is manned up on the outside. TJ Hawkinson, which he didn't get far off the line, is in the seam. He could have thrown it to the seam to Hawk, or he could have thrown it, which I don't know why you don't throw 1-on-1 to Justin Jefferson on a go route. He could have thrown it to Justin Jefferson. I wonder about the coaching, because early on we talked about McCarthy like not really going to Jefferson and forcing the ball into places because that's the play call. Like, Jefferson's going to be the decoy man, so this is where you're going to go with the ball. Read it. Read high to low. Read the safety. So if Max saw safety come down, which I'm guessing he did, so he thought it was cover 3, keep watching the safety. There's no reason to watch the routes. You know where they're going. Watch the safety. He never came off the hash, which means it's not single high. So then you go back to your right and say, okay, wait, I got man coverage. Let me just throw it high and far to the end zone and let Justin Jefferson go 50-50. I just don't know if they're being taught that like that's where you should go. So in my opinion, I go back to this. Simplify the offense. Like, it just seems like certain play calls versus certain coverages, there's no extra. And then in that same play, TJ Hawkinson, or it was a different interception. Oh, the high one to Jalen Naylor that went over his head. Hawkinson and the running back are in the same exact spot. So either the running back released wrong or the tight end ran the wrong side of the sit. Maybe they both were supposed to sit opposite sides of the tackles. They both sat right on the same side of the field. So again, if TJ Hawkinson maybe was supposed to run up to where the linebacker was, which my guess it probably was him, that maybe keeps that linebacker from being so far back that he can undercut the high throw. So we can blame coach, right? But maybe the players just kind of are messing up every once in a while too. Like, and that's what I wonder. Like, the way it looks, if you have a dig, you have somebody holding that linebacker dropping. They were on the wrong, both guys were on the left side of the field, which means there's nothing holding that linebacker on the right. So I think somebody messed up, because if I look high and I see the linebacker back, then I should look low and see somebody standing right in front of me. Nobody's there. So I think, Max probably just forced it. Like, okay, I'm going to just go. I'm going to take this. I don't know what the call was, what the scheme was, but if that's the call, it's fundamentally wrong, because you can't throw that and not hold the linebacker with something. You're high low on the linebacker. If he drops, you take underneath. If he comes up, you take behind him. Simple. And we talked about Sam Darnold in the Seahawks, or they could be Eagles, dumb Eagles. But Seahawks, he did that like I think 15 times with Jackson Smith and Jigba, where they run a quick dig and then they have somebody sitting underneath. If you take the underneath, which most linebackers do, Jackson Smith and Jigba's going to keep running. He's wide open. And again, if Naylor just keeps running and there's something holding that linebacker from not moving, he comes open in the next window. Again, I just don't understand some of the scheme calls. So to fix the quarterback, I think you need to fix the scheme and make sure guys are where they're supposed to be. And I feel like Kevin O'Connell at some point is going to get on the podium, and the next time a guy's not in the right place, he's going to just throw him under the bus. Because I feel like he's getting to that point. Like, he's already said his quarterback's feet aren't working and his shoulders aren't here, and the line's not executing what I want him to do. Like, I feel like he's about to start throwing everybody under the bus to save himself, because clearly it probably works in practice, but in the games something's not clicking. And we go back to the 8 false start game. Like, something's going on. Caton's in that game, it was Caton's. The quarterback's Caton's was off. It's just like, what are we doing?
Yeah, coaching in a way and scheming in a way that is possible to execute for the players that you have. I'm just going to quick cut in front of the line here, Braun. I wanted to ask Ron the Josh Johnson question. I think it's a good question in the chat. I'm way more patient with JJ than I am with Kwesi. Is that fair? We're seeing a lot of decisions that end up being more bad than good. A lot. Am I off base? I'm a Kwesi defender in this sense, Ron. Almost every good thing on this roster, it is a Kwesi product. Mm-hmm. Eric Wilson, you got to give him credit for Eric Wilson. You got to give him credit for Blake Cashman. You got to give him credit for your edge rushers who came in and were legitimate stars. Everything worked last year. Everything.
And did I miss this? What happened to Ivan Pace? Am I missing something?
Just
benched. Essentially, just got benched.
Eric Wilson.
Yep. Yeah,
that's what I'm wondering. Like, because there's been no reports of like injury or disciplinary.
No, they just don't want him on the field that much anymore.
Eric Wilson he hasn't developed as a full-fledged like linebacker. He's just kind of
crazy
blitzing.
He's still just kind of a point and shoot.
Yeah.
You can give Kwesi credit for Ivan Pace, and then you can give him credit for the guy that replaced Ivan Pace. But like there are so many gold stars across this roster that are products of Kwesi's free agency decision making. So does an off season, or does a season/off season like this, does it undo all of that goodwill that he built up?
Oh. So I wonder this too though. Why, if you're going to bench Ivan Pace, why cut Kobe King? You don't know what you have in him. He's with the Jets and he's playing now. I just feel
pull
like
up that thread, Ron, you're going to find a lot. Why draft Brian Asamoah if you're going to replace him with a guy you're going to bench him to?
I think they really thought he was going to just clear waivers and be on the practice squad. I think they really thought it was just
for
like
Kobe King.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
But here's the problem: like when you watch his Penn State film, you have to see like the kid is raw. He played in a system where he had to blitz the quarterback and play outside and play middle. So he never really had one spot. He was kind of like a Swiss Army knife, or just go where we need you in this defense. Special teams wise, he's going to give you production and he's a banger. I just don't, his size, he's bigger. Like, he's a true linebacker in size. He's more like a Blake Cashman than he is an Ivan Pace. So, and it fits exactly what you're looking for. I just don't understand that move. But yeah, you're right. I'm not going to go into the weeds on that one. But does it give good? No, because here's the thing, man. A resume is a resume. I always say this in that meeting, and maybe I'll ask. I'm not gonna say which scout because I don't want to throw names out there, but maybe I'll ask because I'm on the sideline pregame, and I usually talk to a couple scouts on the sideline. I'm gonna ask him this question, and here's my question: how much of these choices are the scouts telling Kwesi, and Kwesi staying out of football business, meaning he's more of the business side of it, the analytics side of it, the contract side of it, the numbers side of it, versus like an Andrew Berry who's going to bang his fist on the table for Shedeur Sanders. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder how much Kwesi turns over to the staff and the scouts, and he's more of like a true money ball guy, because that's what he said. He said, I'm not a football guy. He said, I'm a leader of men, and I'm going to do the best to lead these men and put them in the right position to win, whether it's human being. Because he said, I'm a general manager of people, not just the team. I'm the coaches, I'm the players, I'm the front office. Like, I'm managing everything. So I wonder how much of that goes on the scouts. You know, here's what we see, here's what we think you should bring in. And then where does the coaching staff fall on that? Because I know with the Colts, because I went through 2 drafts with them, and we had, this is old school though, they probably have way better technology now, some kind of smart board. But we actually had, which I probably still have some people's up there. We actually had, I do, they're up there. We had some, I think I kept Pierre Garçon's and somebody else's. But we had like, what are they called? Magnets, right? And so there was like a giant board with magnets, and it had each position, and it had different stations, and it had like, here's first tier, second tier, third tier. So you had all the guys in first tier, which means first to third round. Then you had your second tier guys, which is fourth to sixth. Then you had your third guys, which is seventh to free agent. I wonder how much of that board is controlled by the coaches and the scouts, and Kwesi just kind of comes in and says, okay. Because he does watch film. Like, he told me that. He watches film. He's going to check the guys out, you know, to make sure it looks like what it fits what the coaches are looking for. But I wonder how many of these decisions go on the coaches versus on him, you know, because at the end of the day, Keenan McCarthy has to say, here's the receiver I want for this position. I do know that. I know Clyde Christensen made the decisions for that. It was not Jim Irsay. You know, it was not Bill Polian. It was Clyde Christensen saying, I want these receivers to go with this group. And so I do know the coaches have way more say in who they want. The scouts just kind of give them the options. The GM kind of looks at the options, and then the coach has to say, I really like this guy. And that's the reason why they go to pro days, because they want to see him up close, and they're going to run the drill. I mean, that's the one thing, like at the Gophers pro day, you could see Josh McCown and them over there with Brosmer, like putting him through an actual, like, here's what we do. And then you would see another, you know, the Steelers guy came over, and he's going with Max, and he's putting them through some stuff. So it was a couple different coaches that were doing it to kind of see, you know, and you could tell the teams that had no interest in players, because they're not even really over there at that station. They're just standing around with the rest of the guys, joking around and talking. I'm not going to say which guy, but during one of the guys' like workouts, the coach talked to me for like 20 minutes. So I'm like, oh, you're definitely not looking at this guy. You know, like, it's just, you can tell who they're looking at by how they're in. And so I don't know how much that goes on the GM.
Yeah. Well, the process you're describing could be true. And that sounds like too many cooks in the kitchen. Like, maybe the flaw is you need one voice. You need a GM that
like a John Lynch,
that someone that is going to have a very strong and educated opinion, and you don't have too many influences.
And that's my opinion. I don't know if Kwesi, maybe he does bang his fist on the table for people, because he's from Andrew Berry's tree, so maybe he does. I just feel like he's less of that and more of a manager.
You may be right on there. Last
part
one,
of this. Part of this is Josh Johnson, who said he bought an Ivan Pace jersey. This is your fault, Josh.
When you said Josh Johnson at first, you're like, the Josh Johnson question, I thought it was about to be about the quarterback. Josh Johnson, like, no, should they give him a shot? Are you the real
Josh Johnson in the chat? Are you the
Josh Johnson?
Is he still in the league? Because I know he had a commercial with like switching jerseys with 18 different teams, like a T-Mobile commercial or something. So I didn't know if he still was in the league. I know he's played for like a bunch of teams.
He's in the chat, so he's got some free time.
So yeah, let me know that. Yeah, still. Oh, he's coming to US Bank. He's on the Commanders.
Josh Johnson?
Right. Yeah.
See, he's still out there.
There we go.
Great comedian, by the way, Josh Johnson. I don't know
if
I have seen that guy with the braids, right?
Yeah.
We're all working really hard to find these like realistic fixes that we can feel good about. But I say we swing a little harder. All right. The Matt Stafford trade, to use that as a framework, was 2 first-round picks and Jared Goff for Matt Stafford. Now, JJ McCarthy is not Jared Goff, but he's also a lot younger. So let's just be safe, let's say 3 first-round picks and J.J. McCarthy for Joe Burrow, who wants out of Cincinnati. What do you think? Would you do it?
3 first round? That's a lot. Goodness gracious.
JJ's pretty rough. You got to do some convincing.
I mean, I would do the 2. I would do the 2 first round picks
in
in J.J. McCarthy for Joe Burrow.
It'd be 2 1/3
for Joe Burrow. Trade. Yeah, I would. I mean, now again, Joe Burrow has had injury issues, but when he comes back blazing. Like his rifle is never empty when he comes back. I know Justin Jefferson loves a good Joe Burrow. I could see that. I would be okay with that. Like I would, not gonna lie. Like Joe Burrow is legit. Like is which is crazy to think Ohio State decided to go. Did not let him be their guy. Who was their quarterback at that time though? Why did Joe Burrow transfer? Do we remember who it was?
Stroud?
Was it CJ Stroud?
Or was it before Stroud?
I think it was before Stroud.
Might be before Stroud.
If
Joe Burrow, if the Bengals traded Joe Burrow, it would be Luka Doncic-esque.
Was it the guy that transferred to Syracuse after that? Is that too late?
I don't know. I know they had a bunch, but Stroud was the only one that kind of made it work at Ohio State. But no, Luka Doncic though, is getting Cooper Flag though. Is that going to work out?
It was them? Justin Fields.
Justin Fields. Yep. Okay, there we go. So another NFL guy.
I love it. I've actually got another trade I'm going to run by you guys, and we may as well have Ron stay around and react to it because it's receiver related. I am going to take a quick break though, but I've got a bombshell trade recommendation next. Okay, let me pay it off. Bombshell trade idea. Thinking of just creative ways to bolster this roster, give Kwesi the best chance to succeed in the draft. If you're not going to pay Jordan Addison in 2 years, like the market rate, and it's going to be a ton of money at that point, do you get ahead of it now and get a first-round pick for him for this upcoming draft? Is this the offseason where you offload Addison, pay Naylor as your number 2, sign someone else, whatever you have to do? But is this the time?
That feels too likely to end up behind. Like that first round pick being worse than Addison, and then you just have a worse room now feels like too likely a scenario.
That's understand. Like I understand where you're coming from. I don't know. It still feels compelling to me.
It's not I'm not I'm not flipping the table and
here's where I think
it's not the craziest idea that I've ever.
It's not a crazy idea, but I don't like it because you know what you have. A bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. And when you think about the Bengals, right? So you brought up Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They don't rely on a running back. They rely on their quarterback to throw quick passes and then every once in a while hit you in the face with a dagger. Again, if you watch their offense, I've broken it down a couple times. If Jake Browning? Jake Browning's best asset is the fact that his girlfriend is on TikTok and takes I forgot to tell you that too. When the Bengals came here, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I you know how you see somebody and you're like, man, she looks familiar, but you don't really know. And you just keep going about your day. So I'm on the sideline standing there. I see a bunch of girls taking nonstop pictures. I'm trying to get out the way because I don't want to end up on somebody's, Instagram or TikTok. Classic. We caught him in 4K. So I'm trying to get out the way. And then I realized later when I go back and look at social media, it was Browning's fiance or whatever, that's all they do is do fit checks. And but the fact that Jake Browning could run that offense means it's pretty simple. It's get the ball out your hands quick. It's 3-step drops, and every once in a while, boom, I'm going to go to a deep ball to T. Higgins or Jamar Chase, or I'm going to go to a deep post to one of them. Again, I go back to this every week. There's no quick game in the Vikings offense. There's nothing quick that you can nonstop go quick other than the 2-minute drill. And the 2-minute drill, for the most part, seems to move the ball down the field. I don't understand why they don't just do that. Whatever happened to the hitch and the slant and the out and the the stuff you do at mini camp and workouts and all that. I can't remember the last time I've seen Justin Jefferson run. I mean, we did see who I think was it Addison might have run one or Jefferson ran like one out, but it was like a 7-yard out and they threw it over his head. Like that should happen more than that because he's open, meaning you could probably do that on first or second down a lot. So I understand the trade, but I feel like there's too much emphasis on like let's run the ball versus if you draft this quarterback to be what you think he is, then try it. Like test him out. See if he can go quick. See if he can throw the ball quick and get it out of his hands. I don't understand that. I'm a fan of like the way Peyton Manning ran his offense, Drew Brees, like Joe Burrow, like makes no sense to how they're running this offense right now with that offensive line half the time.
Yeah, it might also be 1 year premature because he can probably have a great year next year. He's still got the 5th year after that. You could probably still trade him for the same if he has a good year.
And you don't trade Justin Jefferson though, right? Because I see all those stupid rumors out there.
Not.
Okay.
No, that's an untouchable. All right, thanks, Ron. Appreciate you staying around a little longer. We'll talk to you after the game.
All right.
At 3, Ron Johnson on X. Let's turn this into a 4-minute drill with our top Commanders storyline.
Start the clock. It's time to execute the 4-minute drill.
I'm looking forward to seeing the league's most efficient pass rushing linebacker against a guy who is viewed as one of the best pass rushing linebackers in the NFL, but actually isn't doing that great this year. Eric Wilson versus Frankie Louvu.
I knew it was going to be Eric Wilson. I knew you were going to say Eric Wilson. Yeah.
Eric Wilson's pass rush productivity, his pressure percentage, it's unbelievable. Frankie Louvu rushes the passer more than any other linebacker in the NFL without nearly the amount of success. Eric Wilson, what do we think he's going to get paid? Because I would like to bring him back. I would not mind another year of this.
Yeah, I think if they don't, that's probably a big whiff, but he's also on the wrong side of 30, so I don't think the contract is going to be of, the kind of market value crazy thing you'd get if he was, 26 and this was just his second deal. But I think, 1-2 more years, kind of keep it provisional so that you can give yourself the flexibility in case he is a flash in the pan. But yeah, no, he's had an absolutely phenomenal season, especially from the position that he's used to. But he even made a couple plays at edge rusher last week.
Yeah, I was doing a bunch of cat math during that segment, and one of the things I was looking at was an Eric Wilson extension, and that is a pretty difficult thing to figure out because of the age concern. I decided actually just to kind of model it a little bit off of the Quincy Williams contract. Because it was signed when Quincy Williams was not getting benched. But also, like, I don't think, I don't think that that's like a bad comparison in terms of perceived value. And he ended up with essentially $6 million per year. That, when you take a look at these contracts, by the way, when you're looking at like I was looking at like what would it take to sign Luke Fortner, right? And I looked at Luke Wattenberg's contract with the Broncos. These contracts are really difficult to get a hold because Luke Wattenberg has void years all the way until he's 41. There are like 11 void years in the contract, 4 of which are not being used, right? Like there's no prorated bonus going into them. So it is always difficult to evaluate other contracts, but I think the Quincy Williams contract is essentially $6 million per year for 2, 3, maybe 4 years in a void year, but probably not.
Matt Milano signed for $6 million. Anzalone signed for $6 million. Those guys are beyond 30 years old. $6 million feels like a pretty good number.
Yeah, so that's probably where I'd be at with that. I think anybody who demonstrated kind of unambiguously starting quality play, right, is somebody that I would just keep on the roster. Like that's. Like when we're talking about like obviously Jalen Redmond, you'll tender him and stuff like that. But like people in kind of that Eric Wilson territory, I think you just have to be aggressive about that because I think one of the things that if your whole deal is that you want to create a good environment for whatever quarterback situation you have, if that's your whole deal, right? That's what the Vikings have like kind of been about. Then you can't find ways to get worse. And I think letting Eric Wilson walk is finding a way to get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many players that are playing at an unacceptable level that, anything you have that looks even semi-normal that can just Band-Aid things over while you find a more long-term solution, or can themselves become the long-term solution, like Jalen Redmond, who the chat's talking about too, is like an extension guy, which will happen eventually. They've got a lot of team control.
Don't worry about Jalen Redmond. I promise. Like he is a restricted free agent anyway. There's like not
exclusive rights. It's so that's they'll pay him when it's time to, but they've got a lot of time before he gets expensive, and they'll use that time. But yeah, I think
seeing in this game a continuation defensively of what you saw against Seattle, and if it can continue for this month, it tells you at least that you can roll with this defense to some extent going into next year, and focus on getting the quarterback resolved without having to do a major defensive makeover. You obviously need help at corner. You've got to draft one high. You may have to remake safety.
Surely this is the year.
Your front seven's good. But I think watching the progression of this defense they have been worse than last year, but also not in shambles the way the offense is. I think it could tilt either way, and the way we perceive it could be influenced here down the stretch. Other Commanders storylines on Sunday.
Besides who the quarterback is going to be?
Big one. Mariota or Daniels, who was limited yesterday, not cleared for contact. I can't believe he's suiting up after his arm bent backwards in a football.
Yeah, all of the reports after that, which if any of you didn't watch the extremely slow motion replay, don't go out of your way to find it. It is rough looking. But apparently the immediate reports following that, as soon as they were able to kind of take a look at it, we're all like, yeah, it's way better than we thought. Who knew bodies could do that, right? Like, which is really uncomfortable, I think, actually, like from a personal, like evaluating my own bodily integrity and mortality standpoint. But but yeah, it was always kind of better than it looked, and so it was always kind of on the table for him to return sooner rather than later. The thing for me, though, right, is they're asking essentially the same question that, we've asked some other Viking seasons, less so this Viking season. But like, they have a 7-game losing streak, right? They've won like 3 games or something this year.
Yeah,
they're having the Vikings. Yeah, so they did exactly what the Vikings did this year. They poured a bunch of money in to surround their rookie quarterback with, struck gold.
Right. Yeah.
And it was kind of a 2-year window.
Yeah, which is what you want to do when you're in that scenario, right? So now they're in a spot, right, where you're wondering, is it like worth it? Does he have to come back? Like, he can wait, right? Like, that's where I would be especially if I had the Commanders' history of returning quarterbacks from injury, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I would just be like, hey, this is not an RG3. We'll make him wait. We will lock him into a room and violate like labor law in order to protect this guy, right? Like that's the direction they should be heading in. But it sounds like it's not, right? And so that's the storyline, is that it may be pretty close in terms of who's going to start between the two. Close enough that I currently have him as my starter on one of my fantasy leagues. And so, from a Vikings perspective, maybe it's better if he doesn't. But like me personally, like, hey man, get out there.
Yeah, David Harrison told me on the crossover that like people are kind of split. He's going to be like limited all week and probably going to be a true game time decision. So we actually talked a little bit about like preparing for Daniels versus preparing for Mariota. And David Harrison's answer was like, it doesn't change a lot. So you prepare for Cliff Kingsbury. This is the Cliff Kingsbury offense. It is what it is. And how you approach it strategically is you're not going to see like a crazy different game plan for one quarterback or the other, which is probably why you get a backup like Mariota who can execute everything you already had installed for Jaden Daniels. So that's the big one for me. And I think the way this game, it feels like whoever wins this game is going to come out of it feeling like they've salvaged something out of a dying season. Whether it's, the Commanders, they get Jaden Daniels healthy, they go on the road, they win a game, like they feel like they've gotten something going. And there's a lot of chances for them. Their run game has been just pitiful. And So is the Vikings run defense at times. If they can get the ball rolling there, if they can beat the Vikings up on the ground, and then suddenly the line feels like, ooh, we got physical on somebody, and like that you can build a little momentum to try to finish strong, head into next year feeling good. And then on the flip side, yeah, if the Vikings can get off of their losing streak and JJ McCarthy, like if the Vikings win and McCarthy plays halfway decent even, or even just below average, only one interception instead of throwing 3 and trying to throw 5. Then we walk away feeling like, oh, sweet, simplifying it was the right move. Took them too long to get there, but we found something. Okay, we can move with that. So it feels like one of these teams can sort of find a light to walk toward. And then whoever loses is in darkness.
Do we count that as a moral victory? I mean, the Vikings,
yes.
I think right, because their moral victory record is pretty close actually to their actual record this season. So they could use a moral.
No way, they're a moral 0-12. They're always a moral 0-12.
No,
it's the Vikings. They can't win.
Week 1 was a moral victory. Are you kidding me? Week 1 was a moral victory?
No way, they were bad for
Week
3
1
quarters.
was a victory.
Yeah,
moral victory.
Yeah,
No.
Sam, you don't understand.
What didn't happen?
I think a fourth quarter comeback that has you believing in the quarterback is a moral victory. Now, we were tricked by the moral victory as much as we were by the actual victory, but I would count it as a moral victory.
In Minnesota, we spin anything into a moral defeat if we have any excuse to, and it's certainly been harder to find. The Bengals, that's a moral defeat. That team sucks. That's how we do this in Minnesota. Moral 0-12.
Moral defeat.
That's correct. Yeah, it doesn't count.
422 win.
Yes, now you get it.
Vikings are favored by 2.5. Last I saw, we make our Week 14 bets around the corner.
Back to 1.5.
Back to 1.5. Bets around the corner on the Squad Show. All right, Week 14 bets. We've got increasing minimums and maximums. We've had a season-long contest. Luke Braun leads by $3,000 over Arif Hasan, who's been backtracking with a series of 1-1 weeks. He is at 600 plus. Luke Inman down 7,700. I'm down 10 grand. I'm 5-21 as my bets have gotten increasingly more desperate. But this week I have the parlays that will connect.
I figured it out. I figured out the parlays.
We start with Arif Hasan, who's got to start getting more assertive.
No, I don't. What do you mean I have to get more assertive? Got
to win, dude.
No, I just have to wait for Luke to lose. That's the whole strategy at this point. So I'll go with I think we're gonna get kind of like some receiver bounce back here. I don't love still the over under for Justin Jefferson as far as I can tell what it might be. So I'm gonna go with just a simple Jordan Addison 40 plus. We don't know the odds yet, just in terms of like where FanDuel is going to come down on it by the time the game starts. But I'm going to guess it's like in the minus 105 to minus 114, 115 area. And so if it is that, and we'll discuss this later, Sam, once it becomes live, I'll take that for my minimum medium. I want to take another medium off the board for me, and I want to take the smallest version of that medium.
All right, $560. Luke Braun.
Yeah, so I think there's some stuff happening going into this one that makes the first half of this game fairly hard to predict. But I do kind of feel like whatever the Vikings throw at them will, historically over the year, it's been pretty easy for a team to go in after a few drives and figure out what's going on. So I will take the Commanders to win the second half. I'll do a minimum medium as well, a small medium, a smedium, and that's at plus 102.
Plus money. All right, I've got 2 more touchdown parlays. Last week, I actually got one leg, and I needed Jalen Nailor at the end. He got a tackle and a fumble recovery instead of a touchdown. I'm going to go with JCM, Corey Krosky-Merritt, and Justin Jefferson. Final 2 max bets. Max bet to win $14,505.17. And then the timeless, ageless Zach Ertz and Jalen Nailor to win $26,070.64.
Touchdown props, right?
Touchdown props anytime. Back to Braun.
Anytime the Vikings are favored, you know what I got to do. I got to put as much money as I possibly can, which I'm out of max bets, so I'll do a maximum medium on the money line. Which, as of this recording, it is shuffling around a lot, but as of this recording, it is at plus 108.
Arif, finish it up.
Yeah, so I wanted to take Jordan Mason rushing over, and it doesn't look like FanDuel has that up yet, and it doesn't look like we have a ton of other resources to have a good guess at what it is. But my guess is it's going to be they're waiting on like Aaron Jones's like injury, whatever. My guess it's going to be around like 58 or something like that, because I don't think Aaron Jones is going to play. So provisionally, mine is an over on Jordan Mason rushing yards. We'll find out what it is once we get more clarity on Aaron Jones. But if we don't expect Aaron Jones, I would say the over on anything around 58, 59, 60. If we do expect Aaron Jones, I would say the over on 27, 28, 29, maybe even 30. Again, we'll check in later when we get that. And that is another minimum medium, this medium.
You got it. Mason over 560, odds pending. Thank you, Arif. Thank you, Braun. Thank you, FanDuel. We will be back after the game on Sunday. Luke Inman hosts. Ron Johnson joins. Braun and I are there as well on the post-game Vikings Squad show. Thank you for watching, listening, commenting, and subscribing today. Talk to you Sunday.